I have the pleasure of sitting with my father, Franklin Gimbel, who we call the founder. We call him the founder because 55 years ago he started this law firm, Gimbel, Reilly, Guerin, Brown. It certainly wasn't called Gimbel, Reilly, Guerin, Brown back then, but we fondly call you that because of your longevity in the practice of law. And I'm really honored to be sitting here talking to you today about your legacy and the firm and the future of the firm.
Well, I am likewise delighted to be talking to my successor. And when I say my successor, what you said is true. In 1968, following a 5-year tenure in the United States Attorney's Office as a federal prosecutor, a term within which I tried many jury cases, including at the end of that term, prosecuting for tax evasion the ostensible head of the Milwaukee organized crime mafia, Frank Gimbel, in Springfield, Illinois. That trial lasted for a period of 3 months, over a 6-month period, because we had a 1-month break in the middle of the case as a consequence of the lead defense lawyer having a heart attack during the course of the trial. But in 1962, while I was living with your mother and you and your brother, Todd, I ran for state assembly in the North Shore of Milwaukee County, and I ran as a Democrat in a predominantly Republican area. I nonetheless, as a result of that experience, got to know then head of the Democratic Party, the governor of the state of Wisconsin, United States senators, congressmen, and it was as a consequence of that meeting that I had a luncheon with Pat Lucey, who became governor of the state, but was at the time of our luncheon meeting the chairman of the Democratic Party, and he wanted me to be the chairman of the Jefferson-Jackson dinner in 1963, at which Lyndon Johnson, the vice president of the United States, was going to be the principal speaker, and he wanted me to be the MC of that event, which was a $100 a plate dinner, which in 1963 was an awful lot of money, probably equivalent to $1,000 today. I told him that I'd love to do it, but I was not well employed at the time, working for a lawyer who didn't have the kind of practice that really worked for me. And I said, if he could get me a job in the U.S. Attorney's Office, I would do anything that would not be criminal as a result of his request for me to do that. And at the luncheon table at the then Schrader Hotel, now the Hilton, he called, and the person on the other end of the line answered, and he said, Bobby, this is Pat, blah, blah, blah. How's your brother Jack? He was talking to Robert Kennedy, and he said he's got a friend here and a young man on the rise who'd like to be in the U.S. Attorney's Office. And at that point in time, that luncheon meeting, I got the nomination by the Attorney General of the United States to be appointed as an assistant United States attorney, and that was a turning point in my legal career, because it was from that point on, when I started in that office, that I learned what the courtroom looks like, and what the roles of the different players are in the courtroom. And I learned how to appear in front of judges and in front of juries, and what happened thereafter led to the establishment of my private practice in 1968.
You had quite a broad reach early on in your career. If you're talking to the Attorney General, or you're sitting with Pat Lucey, he's talking to the Attorney General. Yes. Quite impressive.
Well, you know, at the time, I didn't think of it as impressive, but as oftentimes events in your life, when you look back on them, you realize how significant those events were and what enormous contributions they made to the hereafter of your life once those events occurred. And so I credit by having run for office, gotten the attention of the chairman of the Democratic Party in the 1960s, and also having worked to raise money to kind of bail out the Milwaukee County Democratic Party from a lot of debt that they had. I got the attention of Pat Lucey, and I was able, as a result of my growing up in a family of a salesman father who never went to college, how to make a sale, and the sale was Frank Gimbel getting a job that would grow himself as a lawyer in the direction that he wanted to go, and that was in the courtroom. And those things worked out just the way that I might have dreamed about them. And so there is, I guess, in life, for many people who are as lucky as I think I am, because I've had a great life in terms of having wonderful children who I adore and who have all been very successful. I have had some lucky turns in my life, which brings me to the opportunity to have this conversation with my son, who is a brilliant lawyer, but as important or more important, he is a community asset and contributes greatly every day to the well-being of folks who don't have the ability to make it on their own.
Well, I think I learned some key lessons from you. One is to be a member of the community in which you work, because it makes connections. People know who you are, and if they're in trouble or they need someone as a sounding board, they reach out to you. But also just communication skills. You have tremendous communication skills, and you always taught me from a very early age that whether you're talking to a Supreme Court judge or the clerk, you treat him the same way. In fact, you might treat the clerk better than the Supreme Court judge, because that's how your bread is buttered. That's how you make good, lasting relationships that can maybe help open doors for you.
Well, you make two good points. One, of course, is that a parent is, by biology, a kind of a role model for his or her children. And my father was that for me, notwithstanding that he did not have an easy life, but he was a good salesman. And he urged me and my younger brother, Stanley, to be educated and to keep volunteering for roles and activities in the path of life that we were on that would give rise to our being able to create an identity that was quality identity. And I like to think that I did take that road with the tutelage of my mother, who was a stay-at-home mother but was very caring. And I like to think that that I and your mother and the mother of my younger children have continued in being inspirational to their children and nurturing to their children in a way that took away from them the stresses of getting through the day. And so I'm so proud of all of my children for being self-sufficient, well-educated, and good family people.
So you left the U.S. Attorney's Office and you decided to head out on your own. And here we are 55 plus years after that date when you left the U.S. Attorney's Office. And we sit here with a firm that has been in existence all those years. What were your expectations when you left the U.S. Attorney's Office and went on your own?
Well, it's hard to say. I hoped and trusted that, my experience as a lawyer and the high visibility, actually, that I was able to garner prosecuting cases that during a period of time when television didn't have 500 channels to choose from, covered the cases that I was involved with, when the daily newspaper was relevant to people because it was their source of knowing what's going on in the universe around which they lived or within which they lived. And so I had these high-profile cases. And yet in 1968, there were no employers out there that wanted someone who was a courtroom skillful criminal lawyer, because most criminal defense cases went through the judicial system where there were court-appointed lawyers as a consequence of legal services being too expensive for a lot of folks who got into trouble. But nonetheless, I did take those cases, and I tried many juries on the state dime, if you will, and within making those appearances and also being in some high-profile cases, the reputation of this is the place to go, Frank Gimbel's office, and thereafter Stanley Gimbel's office, and thereafter Richard Reilly's office, and thereafter Tom Brown's office. And then as the firm grew with Mike Guerin and all the folks who followed the original folks in the office, we did develop a reputation as being caring for responsiveness to the problems people couldn't deal with on their own, and who were willing to go to their banks or relatives and borrow money to get professionals to assist them through the complications of the legal system.
So I think it's safe to say that when you started out 55 years ago, you wanted to be a firm that people came to for problem solving.
Correct.
And here we are 55 years later, and I think you still have that reputation personally, and us as a firm have that reputation of problem solvers and people who give attention to people's needs and try to get them to a result that they can be satisfied with.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I think problem solving is, unfortunately, something that a lot of folks can't get the appropriate guides to escape from the problems of the daily living, the interaction of themselves and the interaction with government. And there have always been problem-solving law firms for corporations who have a lot of money to pay the lawyers. There are public institutions like the Public Defender's Office and the Legal Aid Society, where government pays for legal assistance for folks in civil and in criminal trouble. But there's this middle ground, which is kind of the ground that Frank Gimbel saw back 55 years ago as the ground where he would plant the seeds of a garden, if you will, that would be accessible to people who had too much money to have public lawyers provided to them, and not enough money to go to the very large corporate firms that were more interested in profit and loss and balance sheets than they were with the ups and downs of family living as people interacted in their jobs and in their communities, and with normal problems that visit families and visit communities.
Yeah. So let's go back for a minute to community involvement and how important community involvement is. I know that we've talked about that, and you certainly instilled that in me and in my children. I've tried to instill that in them, and I think we all try to instill that in our colleagues, is the importance that you are not only a lawyer in this community, but you're a member of this community, and that you should try to make it a better community.
Well, I think that having grown up in humble economic circumstances, I'm talking about my life, with a father and mother who didn't go to college, who didn't have wealthy parents who left them property or income streams, made me aware of the fact that there is a place for, if you will, guides for those people who don't have within their families or within the communities that they are born into or raised into, a need for shepherding. And I started early in my life in grade school and high school, taking leadership roles in athletics and in academic things, speaking things. And when I got into the profession of law, I felt that, for example, becoming involved in organized bar activities was useful for creating a network of individuals who would be aware of who you are, and that would work in terms of your problem issues associated with interacting with other people and their lawyers. So I became president of the Milwaukee Bar Association, a volunteer organization. I became chairman of the board of governors of the state bar. I became president of the state bar. I became involved in municipal things because one of the federal judges that I practiced in front of, Myron Gordon, was a very close personal friend of Henry Meyer, the mayor of Milwaukee. And as a consequence of that friendship, I was urged upon the mayor as a problem solver with things related to, among other things, the criminal justice system. And the mayor put me on the Fire and Police Commission during a period of time when Harold Breyer was the chief of police, and he was a very dogmatic, strict, conservative fellow who did not treat everybody in the universe of the Milwaukee city the same based on their color, their age, their economic circumstances. And so we butted heads for a number of years, the chief of police and I, when I was on the Fire and Police Commission. It was a mayor who put me on the MECA board, which was involved in the governance of the arena, the convention center, and the auditorium. And my interaction with Governor Tommy Thompson, a Republican who became a good friend of mine, who put me on the Wisconsin Center District. And I was lucky enough to have enough connections and the ability to problem solve from the legal experiences that I had to navigate the construction of the Wisconsin Center District, sell the naming rights to that building, refurbish the arena as the venue for UWM, and convert the auditorium into what is now the Miller High Life Theater.
And even here, as we sit here today, when people need to be introduced to people, whether it be fundraising for a new building built out at the Repertory Theater, or if it's to fund something at the Library Foundation, Public Library Foundation, they call on Frank Gimbel to help them open those doors. You've got quite a what used to be a Rolodex, but now it's in your contacts list in your phone.
Well, I appreciate that observation, and there is some truth to that. I've always viewed respectable visibility as being among the great assets of people who sell services. And whether you're a plumber, an electrician, a doctor, or a lawyer, you sell services. And I have found, and it's worked for me, that if you are present for people to call on for your ability to communicate and make your ability to communicate their mouthpiece, if you will, and I say that in a non-derogatory fashion, to raise money, to raise awareness, to create an appetite for improving the lot of whatever individual problems visit them or institutional problems visit organizations that they're associated with. I have been fortunate enough to have my door knocked on a number of times, to the point where someone in City Hall once called me Mr. Clout, and I think that that name kind of stuck to me primarily because I could call people who were decision makers in the community and they'd return my call. And I was fortunate enough to try to be the messenger boy, if you will, of worthy causes and employ people which would, at the end of the day, improve the community in which we live and work.
One of the great nicknames I've ever received was being called Son of Clout. So I'm thankful for you to be Mr. Clout so that I can be Son of Clout.
Well, you could have been Mr. Clout too, because I'm extraordinarily proud of everything that you've done, and you have a wonderful heart in addition to being a smart guy, and that combination is an asset for the community that you operate in.
Well, I know that I started practicing law, what is it now, 36 years ago, if you can believe that.
No,
I graduated
no,
from
I can't.
the other law school, not Marquette Law School that you went to and that my brother Todd went to, but I went to Wisconsin Law School. And when I graduated, I worked for Terry Evans for a year, your good friend and one of the great judges of all times and great human beings. And I decided after that one-year clerkship that I wasn't ready to work at Gimbel. Well, it was then Gimbel, Reilly. I think it was probably Gimbel, Reilly, Guerin, Brown, 25 or 35 years ago. And I decided that I wanted to become my own lawyer. I wanted to have my own name. I wanted my own client base. I wanted to set my own path, because I didn't want you to have the pressure of having a son working with you, but I also didn't want to have the pressure of my father being my boss. And so I spent 25 years at Michael Besson Friedrich, where I was under the mentorship of one of your great friends, Dave Cannon, who was just a brilliant lawyer and a great communicator and just an all-around great guy. And I found that 25 years of experience there was something that I couldn't have gotten just working with you. And that I thought, after 25 years there, I thought, if I ever have a chance to practice law with you, it was now that time. Where you were a young, spry 77 at that time, and I decided to move over here. And I was welcomed with open arms, and I knew that the partnership was aging a bit, and that there was a need for someone a bit younger who had a community presence and had a legal practice that might fit in with this firm. And here we are 10 years later, and I think that the trajectory has just been in the right direction.
Well, there's no question in my mind that your having left Michael Best and Friedrich, which was a wonderful place for you to learn the alphabet of the legal practice from A to Z in situations that visit families and visit businesses. I opted in my life to hope that that our family would be part of a relay team where the baton would go from me to one or more of my children. And your older brother was with me when he got out of law school. That didn't work out. And there's all kinds of reasons for that, but they're kind of irrelevant because he turned to a different course in his life of public relations in the corporate world, and he was extraordinarily successful and continues to be successful in that endeavor. Your sister and brother, brother's a lawyer, young brother with a big corporate firm in Washington, D.C., and that's just because he went to law school there and he excelled as a student. And your sister is a psychologist married to a lawyer. I mean, we can't get away from lawyers, I guess, if you're part of our bloodline directly or indirectly. And I couldn't be more proud at this stage of my life than to have a realization that what started 55 years ago with me and my secretary from the U.S. Attorney's Office opening a small office in the Caswell building in Milwaukee turned into a well-respected law firm that people look to for, first and foremost, for concern, caring, and a good heart, and equally important, or even more important, with a good intellect. So I'm happy that the lawyers that now people, Gimbel, Reilly, Guerin, and Brown, led by you, is a go-to place, and it deserves to be a go-to place because of all the good work that the lawyers within the framework of this law firm have done in the profession and outside of the profession for the betterment of the community within which we now live.
So you've had many lawyers come through and been under the Gimbel, Reilly, Guerin, and Brown banner over these 55 years. And you've had a very good track record. Some have become magistrate judges, some have become judges, some have gone on to other various successful ventures other than in the practice of law. But you still have a very good core of lawyers here. What is it that you look for in a lawyer?
Well, I think first and foremost that if someone chooses to assist the universe of humankind, like medicine and law, they can, if they choose to go down those professional paths. They can approach their responsibilities with the label of doctor or lawyer as a combination of somebody who is a caretaker for those people who seek their guidance, and also a caretaker to the institutions that keep our system of justice impartial, theoretically, and something that works where everyone has an ability to exercise his, her, or their voices in regards to family matters, business matters, and other kinds of interactions that they have growing up. And I like to think that everybody who has been with Gimbel, Reilly, Guerin, and Brown law firm in any and all capacities, but particularly the lawyers, had that combination of qualities, and the current roster of folks that are peopling the firm continue in that vein. And I'm very, very satisfied and happy with the fact that they have followed what I had hoped to be my lead in those directions, and which you have assumed as the leader and somebody who conveys and projects all of the qualities of a successful community servant and lawyer.
So, Mr. Founder and Mr. Clout, if you were to look into the crystal ball and see what this place was like, this firm, 20 years from today, what do you think it'll be like?
Well, I like to think that the culture will be the same. And when I say the culture, I think dealing with problems that are visited on people either by reason of their own bad behavior, misbehavior, indifference, or just circumstances of living, will have a place to find a guide person. I was going to say guide dog, but a guide person to help them return to a good place. I have to guess that 20 years from now, long after I will have left the universe, the way of AI, artificial intelligence, the way that computers are kind of taking over functions that the country lawyer undertook 100+ years ago, and which has been carried on into the age of computers. When I started practicing law, after leaving the government, we had typewriters in the office. We had carbon paper. The technicalities of the operation of a person's business, like a law firm, is entirely different than it is today. And while I have attempted to keep up with the technology that has now visited us as what is ostensibly an improvement on the quality of life for all of us, I feel very awkward many times in my inability to really harness technology in a way that you, for example, have had the ability to do, and to use it to bring ease to some of the tasks that are visited on you by people who come through the door for your help. Having said that, I'm suspecting that 20 years from now, it would be beyond my current ability to imagine what kinds of, if you will, mechanical or automated or I can't even put labels on the things that might be available to take the place of caretakers who have guided people through complicated legal systems. But you know that people still have problems 20 years from today. They will
and they're
have
still going to
problems.
need some sounding board and someone to help them to.
I think that's my best guesstimate is that they will, unless they start manufacturing people with gene pools that no longer have just the consequence of happenstance. But I don't know that we're ever going to get in that direction. But I'm sure that in the age of Thomas Jefferson, when the Constitution of the United States was created, Thomas Jefferson probably would not expect that people like Donald Trump, a one-time president who wants to be president again, would say that the Constitution should be discarded, essentially, or should be rewritten to the point where more authority resides in the political leaders in our world that can have the ability to pull the trigger on life and death for people or groups of people, and have a huge influence on the quality of lives that they currently live. So I'm hoping that the age of Thomas Jefferson and his peers is not lost in the future. That the traditions of the American form of government, the American form of justice, which is far from perfect today, nor has it ever been perfect, will continue to strive for perfection and strive for equality and strive for fairness. And I think the word fairness is a big word.
So your name is always going to be at the front of the list of this firm. And how do you want to be remembered by those who have worked with you and will work for us in the future?
Well, I'd like to think that everything that I've done that's been positive will carry forward in whoever follows in my footsteps as a provider of guidance and legal services to prospective clients. And I think that's the most important thing. And I think there's a relationship between that and having an education that transcends the library. And it's an education that comes from the street. And there's no question at all but that I feel that much of my education and much of the success of the law firm, if there is any today, as you've described it, comes from those people who I've made the good decision to associate with in the 55 years that this law firm has been in existence, have a sensitivity to what is going on the street and how does that impact on people and their families and on the quality of life both within and without their families in a way that makes this place a better place to live and to raise a family.
Well, I can't think of anything better in my life professionally than to work with you, so thank you.
And I can't think of a thing better than to have you there. Okay, and I'm happy to pass the gavel entirely to you to carry the name down the road in the way that we've discussed here this morning.
Thanks. So, Dad, what do you think is your proudest moment as an attorney, as a father, and as a human being?
Well, I think the proudest moment that I've had in my life covers the waterfront of the identities that I have. I am a man, and I like to think that I have stepped to the plate when required to do so, to be of assistance to people, A, within my family, B, within my community, and obviously C, within the universe within which we live. I think that I feel that I have used the privilege of being a lawyer, a licensed human being who renders services to the community in a way that has balance, and the balance is between my own commerce and the enormity of the problems that have been visited on the lawyers in my firm to bring some form of relief, if you will, to those people who bring their problems from the pressures and the economics associated with those problems. I will say, if the occasion arose on my deathbed, what would you look back on and say are your greatest accomplishment? My greatest accomplishment are the 4 children I have. And the fact that I feel that I contributed to their education from an intellectual point of view and from a sensitivity to the human race point of view. And I currently believe that those 4 children and their spouses and their children have accepted the baton that I hope to pass on. And I will feel that when I exit this life, as we all do, that what I will leave behind will be the best of what I've done, and some of the errors and mistakes that I've made will have been recognized and avoided.
Nice.
Josh, you know, I have bestowed accolades on you as being what I consider to be one of my accomplishments, bringing you into the world. At least I contributed to that. And I'd like to know what you feel about your life from the time when you became aware of your physical and extra physical environment, and the road that you selected and elected to take in terms of how you would spend your life in terms of making a living for yourself and your family, and serving the community within which you operate as a professional.
Well, that's a simple question to answer. I knew early on that I was going to be a lawyer because I followed you around. I'd go to the courthouse, I'd sit in your office, I'd cause trouble in the Caswell building with my brother. But I always knew that that I was going to be a lawyer because my dad was a lawyer. And when I became a lawyer, it was, I know it was meaningful for you, but it certainly was meaningful for me and for my life. One thing that you always think about is, what is your greatest accomplishment as a lawyer? And I was told early on that you should get a folder, and it'll be the smallest folder in your file cabinet, but you put all the thank you notes you receive from clients in that, because it's going to be the thinnest file you have.
Yeah.
But we go out there to serve people and to try to get a positive result for them, and when you win, they expected to win, and when you lose, they're wondering why you lost.
Why they selected you to be their lawyer.
Exactly. So I think you instilled in me, and I think one of my greatest accomplishment is to hear a person's problem, figure out what result they want to get at the end of the day, and try to achieve that result in the quickest manner possible and the least financially impactful way. And that person is always going to hold you in high esteem if you can achieve those two things. And they're going to come back to you whenever they have a problem. So I think that was something that you instilled in me, is that it's important to listen to somebody, to figure out what they need at the end of the day and how to achieve that. As far as a human being and my great accomplishments, I think you said it as well, but certainly to have successful children, healthy children, children that respect you and love you. I think that's one of the great accomplishments. I think you instilled that in me and my siblings, and I've tried to instill that in my children. And luckily, they've followed in that lineage, and the importance of family and the importance of respect for your elders. And it's been a great travel so far. And as my mother-in-law used to say, I just want to stick around to see how it all ends.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, or fortunately, the word end when it comes to breathing and awareness is not indefinite.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of keep score on the basis of what is the perspective of my observation of those things around me from the point of view of today an 87-year-old guy who has encountered and competed with some health issues and survived, who has competed and encountered some financial issues which have been confronted and survived, and also to hope that my successors, which are beyond you, and to my grandchildren and their children, that the world that they live in is one that gives them the same level of opportunity, if you will, to make choices that impact on their own well-being, happiness, and the well-being and happiness of the people they interact with as they live their lives.
You know, I was thinking about the future of the firm again, and I think we right now have just the most wonderful group of lawyers possible, from all walks of life, who have various skill sets that they bring to the table and really have a great energy and enthusiasm for what they do. And I think that really reflects on the legacy of you, Frank Gimbel.
Well, I accept your observations. And I hope that your observations, and I trust that your observations are well-founded, because I trust you to make decisions about things close to yourself and those around you. And if what you say is true, my life has been and will continue to be a success. Unless I decide that I need more money and get a gun and go into a bank. I'm not going to do that. Fortunately, I don't need to do that. But sitting here and having this conversation with my son, who is also my partner, if you will, in the commerce of the profession that I chose to pursue, is a reflection of the kind of success that as a person growing up I dreamed of, and my dreams come true in the form of Joshua Gimbel.
Thank you.
Well, I would have to say that if there is a difference and a similarity between Frank Gimbel and each of his 4 children, and there are differences and similarity between us, that Josh is a person who is much more guarded in his response to his dad's suggestions. And I think that if I told him to jump off a building, just by reason of his nature, he would say, now, what would be the purpose of my jumping off a building? And he would look to that, like he has in the 10 years we've been together under the law firm roof. And he does not accept that, even though he respects me for having made great decisions along the path of my career, that all of my decisions or all of my suggestions or all of the things that I choose to do are indubitably things that are the best choices. And so he imposes, if you will, and it's a strong word, but he overlaps, if you will, those things that I might suggest for he and I or us together, and adds to it an ingredient of his own judgment, which I think is well placed and well timed, and at the end of the day is of great benefit to both of us.
I think the greatest lesson I learned from you, Dad, because as you know, I've always been a little bit more of an angry person than you are, is that you taught me to take a deep breath and to think about where I'm going and what I'm doing and how I'm approaching it. And I think that that has had a profound impact on my life when I think about it. And the other thing that the life lesson that I learned from you is compassion, the importance of treating everybody with dignity and respect. And there's such a lack of that in our community right now. And I think that's really a lesson that everyone should learn.